You know the cancer screening most people waste their money on? Blood tests. And here's the truth nobody wants to hear. Tumor markers won't catch cancer early. A standard CBC won't either. They'll just burn through your savings while the clock keeps ticking. Here's what kills me. Those are exactly the tests people beg me for. They drop hundreds of dollars, walk out feeling safe, and lose the one thing they'll never get back. Time to actually catch it early. Look, I get it. Cancer is terrifying. You want to do something. But most people have no clue which screenings actually work. So I'm doing something I've never done before. I've built you a simple age-based screening plan, 20s through 60s. That'll actually give you a fighting chance. In this video, you're getting a concrete list. What to do, when to do it, and how to get it through insurance or at low cost. No $1,000 scans you don't need, just what actually saves lives. You'll protect your health without emptying your bank account. I'm Dr. Sam Brown. Today we're cutting through the noise and talking about which cancer screenings you actually need, and which ones are just expensive placebos. Let's start with the question nobody asks until it's too late. When should you even start worrying about cancer? Here's the reality. At 20, your odds are incredibly low, but that doesn't mean you do nothing. The list at this age is short, but it's life or death critical. If you're over 20 and you've never done any of this, pay close attention. This is your starting line. First, know your family cancer history. About 10% of all cancers are hereditary, 1 in 10. So how do you know if you're at risk? If anyone in your family had cancer before 45, if there were rare tumors, or if multiple relatives had the same cancer, you're potentially high risk. In those cases, talk to a doctor about genetic testing. It tells you which screenings you need earlier and more often. For example, if you carry Lynch syndrome, which skyrockets your colon cancer risk, you don't start screening at 40 like everyone else. You start at 20 or 25. Second goal in your 20s, identify infections that raise your cancer risk. HIV and hepatitis B increase your risk of lymphoma and liver cancer. And then there's HPV, human papillomavirus, which is linked to 5 different cancers. Here's the part most people miss. HPV is sexually transmitted, causes no pain, and often has 0 symptoms. People carry it for years without ever knowing. There are over 200 types. 14 are oncogenic. The most dangerous? Type 16 and 18. They're responsible for 70% of cervical cancers. So what do? Women, get tested for HPV starting at 21. Every 3 years, add a Pap test. That's your frontline defense against cervical cancer. Men, the test usually isn't informative, so it's optional. But if you haven't been vaccinated against HPV, do it now. You've got your whole life ahead of you. The odds of changing partners are high. And with that, your risk climbs. Let me say this clearly. 99% of cervical cancer cases are linked to HPV, which spreads during sex. And this is the only cancer you can vaccinate against before you're ever exposed. Next, a complete blood count. It won't catch cancer directly, but it can flag anemia or changes tied to leukemia, a disease that hits young people hard. And women, one more thing that's non-negotiable, a breast ultrasound once a year. I know the guidelines say you can skip it when you're young, but I've seen too many women in their 20s and 30s find tumors by accident, during a waxing appointment, a cosmetic procedure, or just by chance. When I asked when they last had a breast ultrasound, the answer was always the same. Never. They all thought they were too young. You're not too young. Once a year. 30 minutes, about $50. That's not the kind of money worth risking your life over. And you can find 30 minutes. So here's what we do starting at 20. Don't panic, but get screened, get vaccinated. This is an investment in a future where cancer doesn't get the jump on you. Now let's talk 30s. Your goal at this age is to catch the first silent tumors and build the habit of taking care of yourself. What your body forgave at 20, it won't forgive at 30. First, check your skin and moles. I know our generation doesn't fry in the sun like our parents did, but old moles, scars, and weird spots still need a doctor's eyes on them. Old scars are a separate risk factor for squamous cell carcinoma. Once a year, See a dermatologist. Get a dermoscopy if needed. Women, continue annual breast ultrasounds, especially if there's family history. Most findings in women under 40 are benign, but ultrasound is what helps tell benign from malignant. If you're a mom, breastfeeding, or pregnant, you still do it once a year. No exceptions. What else? HPV testing and cytology. Add a pelvic ultrasound, uterus and ovaries. Men, get an abdominal ultrasound. Liver, kidneys, pancreas. Everyone should get a metabolic panel. Check liver enzymes, creatinine. See how your organs are holding up. Throw in iron levels and vitamin D while you're at it. And if you're still smoking, first, quit. Second, get a low-dose CT scan of your lungs. 40 is the real turning point. At this age, we're not just watching anymore. We're actively hunting down cancer risk. And for the first time, you've got a real shot at catching precancerous changes, meaning you can stop it before it even becomes cancer. So what's new? Women, mammography takes center stage now, once a year. No exceptions. People always ask, what's the difference between a mammogram and an ultrasound? Ultrasound works well in young women with dense glandular breast tissue, but after 40, that tissue gets replaced by fat, and changes show up way better on a mammogram, which is X-ray based, so ultrasound becomes backup, and mammography becomes your primary weapon. Now let's talk about your stomach. Starting now, think about getting an upper endoscopy, especially if you have symptoms, chronic gastritis, or family history. Gastric cancer is still top 5 for mortality, and it's brutal to treat. You've probably heard of Helicobacter pylori, but you don't understand why it's dangerous. H. pylori lives in your stomach lining. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies it as a Group 1 carcinogen, a proven cause of cancer. It increases your risk of gastric adenocarcinoma by 4 to 6 times. That's classic stomach cancer, especially in the antrum. It's also linked to MALT lymphoma, a mucosa-associated lymphoma of the stomach. What do you test? A urea breath test. Accurate, convenient, non-invasive. It shows active infection. Or get a biopsy during an endoscopy. That's the gold standard. If you do an endoscopy, make sure they test for H. pylori, stomach covered. Let's keep moving. By 40, colorectal cancer risk starts climbing. Add a colonoscopy, or at minimum a fecal occult blood test, once every 5 years if you have no risk factors. Men, you've got a new screening now, PSA, prostate-specific antigen, especially critical if there's family, history of prostate cancer. And don't forget what you were already doing. Gynecologist for women, dermatologist for everyone, that baseline stays. 50 is a major milestone. If before we were talking prevention and spot checks, now the risks start spiking. And if you're 50 and you've never been screened, block out 2 days and do it. This is an investment that could genuinely add years to your life. And it probably will. Before I tell you where to start, hit subscribe. It helps us grow and create more content like this for you. Here's cancer screening at 50. This is where we move into comprehensive screening of the big 4: breast, colon, prostate, and lung. Women, mammography becomes annual now. Not every other year. Annual. This isn't overkill. It's the only way we reliably catch tumors at stage 1. Colon. At 50, colonoscopy stops being optional. It's the gold standard, at least once every 10 years. The alternative is a fecal occult blood test, but it's far less reliable. Lungs. This is life or death. Lung cancer kills more people than any other cancer. A chest X-ray won't save you. It shows nothing early. But low-dose CT reduces mortality by 20%. Critical for smokers with a 30-pack-year history or more. You know why lung cancer diagnoses spiked during COVID? Not because COVID causes cancer, but because people were suddenly getting CT scans en masse, and doctors accidentally found early tumors. Men, test PSA regularly now. It's your baseline marker for early prostate cancer detection. And of course, CBC and metabolic panel stay on the list. They're background data that help your doctor catch hidden problems. At 50, screening stops being a formality. It becomes the necessary minimum. 60, and beyond. Your main task: stay consistent. Yes, cancer risk is rising, but that's exactly why you can't quit after 60. On one hand, it might feel like a lot. On the other, notice what we're not screening for. We're not testing for every type of cancer. Why? Because the goal is to catch the most common and most dangerous ones. Everything else gets flagged by symptoms. By the way, I have a separate video on cancer symptoms. Watch it. It'll help you catch other warning signs. And I'll say it one more time. We are not drawing blood, hoping it'll magically reveal cancer. Tumor markers don't work that way. Neither does a CBC. They're not informative for most tumors. Yes, they're useful for monitoring patients already treated for cancer. But for a healthy person? Waste of time and money. And since we're talking about money, for everyone getting ready to say screening is too expensive, let's look at the facts. At 20, we start simple. By 40, the list expands. Mammography, PSA for men, fecal occult blood test. After 50 and 60, screening becomes regular and mandatory. And notice, no tumor markers, no CBC. They're not in official recommendations because they don't work for early detection. The most important screenings are available through insurance. Yes, not always as often as we'd like, not always to international standards, but the core tests are accessible at low or no cost. Pap test. Mammography. Fecal occult blood. Endoscopy. PSA. So, use that access. Don't wait. And don't assume screening has to drain your wallet. Some tests you may pay for out of pocket, but the baseline is real, necessary, and available to everyone. Now you have a clear screening plan for life. 20s to 60 plus. Save this video. Share it with people you care about. You might be the one who pushes someone to get screened in time. Drop a comment. Which screenings have you done? What surprised you? And if health matters to you, subscribe. This is where you can talk about health with a doctor who doesn't just make videos. I operate on patients every single day.